Turkish voters head to the polls on Sunday for the second time in 2 weeks in one of the most decisive presidential races in the public's history. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who at age 69 has led Turkey for 20 years, is seeking another 5-year term. Running against him is Kemal Kilicdaroglu, a 74-year-old political veteran backed by a diverse coalition of opposition parties. In the first round on May 14th, Erdogan received the most votes with 49.5% compared to Kilicdaroglu's 44.9%. Now the opposition is scrambling to close the gap for what will be the first country's runoff election for president. The election comes as the NATO member is grappling with a drawn-out economic crisis, as well as struggling to recover from a devastating earthquake in February. Yasin Ekin, I-24 News contributor, joins us now from Istanbul in Turkey. Yasin, Erdogan is most probable to win this race. How are the young people voting? They don't know a Turkey without Erdogan.
That is correct. And as much as the young generation doesn't know a Turkey without Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the same could be said about Kemal Kilicdaroglu. The two candidates have been in politics for the vast majority of the lifespan of much of the young voters. And what we're looking at right now is a head-to-head race. It's tight. So although Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the incumbent president, is projected to win, it's still anybody's race. However, the second round of voting will be much more difficult compared to the first round because the opposition candidate, Kilicdaroglu, did promise and reassure his voter base that the elections will be over in the first round and promised a victory. And now we are heading to the second round of elections, and that promise was misplaced. So the opposition spent a lot of its time over the last 2 weeks convincing its voter base to take to the polls once more. It could be a deciding factor, and we will be very inclined to see who wins indeed at the end of today.
Now, what are people voting about? We mentioned the grave economic situation. The Turkish economy, the Turkish lira has plunged. The economy is not doing well. I know that many young people are looking for opportunities abroad as well if they can afford it. There has been a devastating earthquake, more than one, in February that the country is trying to recoup from. What would it take for the Turks to want to change their government, or what makes them certain that Erdogan is the person to lead them forward?
At the end of about 10 hours time, we'll find out how things will be and who will be.
I'd like to maybe begin by expressing the general consensus among younger voters about their need and desire for change overall. And this isn't change in terms of getting rid of the incumbent president. I think if you think more generally, the general desire is change in Turkish politics as a whole. However, if we take a look at the incumbent president and his voter base, although the economy has been a great issue, decreased purchasing power, inflation, and a great deal of other effects that have swayed many voters to maybe vote against Erdogan, his base is strong and will continue to vote for him for a number of reasons. And if we take a look at the opposition candidate, many of them are voting for him with respect to the economic crisis and the issues with the economy in general. But if we take a look at both sides and both blocs, although many of them do want change, the one thing that is consistent is, although we have an understanding of what Erdogan's policies are, there is a sense of political stability, because up until the early 2000s, political stability has been a big issue within the country's republic. Up until the 1960s, there was a single-party system. Then a multi-party system was introduced, and governments from there on had about 2 years on average, whether it was failed governments, coups, and the likes of that. So Erdogan has brought political stability for the most part. As to whether or not the opposition candidate will be able to provide the same kind of stability is a big factor leading into round 2 of elections here in Turkey.
Okay. Thank you very much. We now, for more analysis, want to turn to Ambassador Alon Liel. He's the former head of the Israeli diplomatic mission to Turkey. He joins us from Herzliya. Pleasure having you, Alon. What would it take for the opposition to succeed today or one day in ousting Erdogan and bringing about that change that we are talking about?
Today, it looks like lost case, and it'll be an unbelievable surprise if they make it today. What seems is that if Erdogan wins, as everybody predicts, the opposition will disintegrate. First of all, Kilicdaroglu, approaching 75 now, will probably not run again in 5 years. But the coalition that he has constructed is very heterogeneous and has 6 different parties, and this coalition is not sustainable if they lose these elections. So the opposition is in fact starting from scratch if Erdogan will be announced this evening the president of Turkey. So I don't predict big achievements for the opposition, even in the next term of Erdogan. He won the parliament already. He has a comfortable majority in parliament, and with an impressive win in the presidency, he has 5 quiet political years internally in Turkey.
Now, Alon, I want to draw on your expertise. You've been following Turkish politics for decades now, and you've also been stationed there, of course, for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Can we draw some parallels between the process Turkish democracy has been going through under Erdogan in the last 20 years and the process that Israeli democracy is going through these days?
Yes, there are parallels. First of all, Erdogan did what Netanyahu did about a decade ago. He built a nationalistic religious bloc. The religious party that Erdogan is leading joined forces with the nationalistic party, the MHP, that Devlet Bahçeli is leading, and they formed such a bloc. And it seems that this nationalistic religious bloc has the majority. This camp of the nationalists and the religious Turks is simply bigger than the secular and liberal camp. And this already is a comparison. Regarding democracy, Erdogan, I would say, tortured the democracy in Turkey. Regarding freedom of speech, he arrested opposition people, fired them, many people went abroad and so on. And in a way, what's happening to us with this government in the last 5 years with an attempt to downgrade the Israeli democracy is not in the magnitude of Erdogan. No way. Erdogan really, I would say, almost destroyed the Turkish democracy. But this campaign that we have now to save Israeli democracy is reminding a little bit what is going on in Turkey.
Ambassador Alon Liel, a pleasure having you. Thank you very much.